Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 808,000 practitioners of common sense and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. It looks like those Hollywood culture winds of change are a-blowing. Can you feel it?
I can feel it.
And this time, I don't think it's broken wind. Well, it's hard not to notice considering that Hollywood just completely shut down. Now, you might have forgotten that the writers have been on strike for almost 3 months, but not to be upstaged, the Film Actors Guild has decided to stop pretending professionally.
No contract, no peace!
And the poor writers can't catch a break because apparently the actors need more attention.
We are the victims here. We are being victimized.
Hollywood is closed for business. What will we do? It's been 3 months without late night television, no Jimmys, no Stephen Colbert, with bangers like this.
There was Alpha, then Delta, then Omicron X, but this latest variant might be the best. It's XBB.1.5.
I would like to remind you, dear viewer, that it took teams of highly paid writers to come up with that stuff.
These are our writers, and I'll stick myself in there because I'm WGA too, and they're so important to our show. They write the monologue, the meanwhile, the cold open, and without these people, this show would be called
A Better World.
And I'd also like to remind you that over the past 3 months, we will have been robbed of what I'm sure will be Shakespearean dialogue like this.
Stop! It's trying to be whatever this is.
I don't know what to be. Tell me what to be.
I don't know, just don't be a dick.
It's too late. Look at me. I'm such a dick.
It's never too late to stop being a dick.
Give me something for the pain and let me die.
That's right, the pencils are down, the laptops are unplugged, and there's no access to ChatGPT. Yes, the very thing that they're striking against, the writers use when they have that thing called writer's block or no talent at all.
Every day there's some news story about AI, and there's no doubt that those services will continue to improve. And right now, as some of our members call them, they're plagiarism machines, and they have no business in the writing of scripts.
Smells like cat piss.
And now joining them in resolute solidarity is the over 160,000 members of the Film Actors Guild. And now we live in a world with no professional pretending. That's right, no pretending on television. No pretending in film. No pretending to be interested in a cause to help promote their film or TV show. No pretending at award shows. No pretending to be interested in one of the 50 interviewers they have to talk to on a press junket. And no pretending on red carpets. And the last two are going to have the unintended consequences of probably helping their film, while simultaneously being bad news for content creators because we're going to be deprived of wisdom like this.
I remember when I was doing Hunger Games, nobody had ever put a woman in the lead of an action movie. Girls and boys can both identify with a male lead, but boys cannot identify with a female lead. Oh, absolutely. You bitch!
Labor strife is nothing new in Hollywood. As I stated in my last strike video, something feels different this time. Sure, during COVID, Hollywood went all in on streaming because all of their platforms were ready. What a coincidence. While they abandoned the movie theaters. Not to worry though, because the taxpayer was there to bail the movie theaters out. Also, Hollywood could abandon them again. We'll get to that. Then the streaming bubble blew up in their face, leading to a financial collapse. Now, I'm not sure how you have a financial collapse when you're not making any money, but that's what happened. Maybe it's just a giant shell game. Now, we have heard that Disney and Warner Brothers may have been fudging their numbers, and I guarantee you the rest do it too. Then there's the problem of the actual content that they put on these platforms, including but not limited to Santa Inc., Velma, Willow, The Wheel of Time, Peter Pan, Cuties, anything from the MCU and anything from Lucasfilm. Then there's all the flops. This is from The Guardian, not exactly the citadel of journalism, but I like this headline. Some are flopbusters. Why were Indiana Jones and the Flash box office bombs? Well, probably because they sucked. Why did they suck? Simply put, overproduced by producers from Hollywood and poorly written by members of the Writers Guild of America.
If the Writers Guild wasn't such an obnoxious organization, it's the Whiners Guild, I call it. But I'm very anti-Writers Guild, but yeah, very.
And specifically in the Flash and Indiana Jones case, featuring two annoying actors from the Film Actors Guild. What was that, Garrett? Oh, I'm sorry, the Screen Actors Guild. So there was the aforementioned flops on streaming, and now we have a lot of them in the theaters, including, but not limited to, Ant-Man, Dungeons & Dragons, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Little Mermaid, Elemental, The Flash, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery. So sure, it's a perfect time to strike. Now, there have been Hollywood strikes during economic downturns in the past. The last one was during the recession. What past strikes in Hollywood didn't have was potentially you and I as competition, or even worse, an adversary and a culture war. A culture war Disney CEO Bobby Iger said he didn't want any part of, and then he follows that up by trying to put out fire with gasoline.
What about DeSantis, who's going to be on the hustings, so to speak, for the next year? And he's made this a part of his campaign, attacking Disney, saying it's a woke corporation. We've put the company on a pedestal, but they've really embraced the idea of getting the sexualized content in the program line that I'm not willing to cross. I mean, that's what he said. I quoted DeSantis there.
It's not our goal to be involved in a culture war. Our goal is to continue to tell wonderful stories and have a positive impact on the world. The notion that Disney is in any way sexualizing children, quite frankly, is preposterous. And inaccurate.
Welcome to the Disney Plus This Is Me Pride Celebration Spectacular.
Texted me this morning, Gen Z is 30 to 40% queer than the other generation's moms, so Disney better get with it.
Our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda.
They've been really open to exploring queer stories. I'm on the production side, and so kind of the only way to have these canonical trans characters, canonical asexual characters, canonical bisexual characters is to give them stories where they can be their whole selves.
I identify as a biromantic asexual. I want to add the pockets of the LGBTQ community that you don't see. I was I want to get gay advanced.
So we no longer say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's hello everyone or hello friends.
We were targeting Gen Z and millennials. We were targeting a younger.
And all this content's going to kids who don't know any of this, and even if they're in a household like Keith that have supportive parents, they're still getting all of this information from media of what is normal.
My fellow members of the audience, whether you're for Ron DeSantis or not, which really doesn't matter to me, all are welcome here. You can't deny that is a pretty good clip. Couldn't have done it better myself. It's been a perfect storm and a complete disaster for Hollywood, and the strikes, with some legit concerns, have made things so much worse. Have we achieved peak television? Possibly. Peak streaming? Maybe. Peak Hollywood blockbuster? That remains to be seen, but the one thing I know we have achieved is peak woke Hollywood. I have no dog in this fight. I am certainly no fan of Hollywood executives or producers, although I have talked to a few cool ones, but I know the vast majority would screw over their own mother. And as far as the Film Actors Guild is concerned, I'm sorry, the Screen Actors Guild, I believe Hollywood actor Matthew Marsden puts it best. If the majority of Hollywood actors hadn't been so derisive about half of the country, people might give a damn about them going on strike.
Lots of famous people.
Lots and lots of famous people.
Just a shit ton of famous people.
But you only get this many famous people together if the issue's
one that truly matters to all of us.
A disease or
ecological crisis or
a racist, abusive coward who could permanently damage the fabric of our society.
Do the math. Do we really want to give nuclear weapons to a man whose signature move is firing?
Firing things?
So, we don't let those criminal bastards get backing off and you're going, whoa! You're like, no, don't say the last part. You lost 50% of your audience. And that's, part of why so much of the nation of that 50% looks at us in Hollywood as going, oh yeah, another celebrity over there on the West Coasters and the elite in the Northeast. And that's what y'all say. Because even from just a sales point of view, don't tab that gotcha on the end, and then you have your audience is twice as big.
You wish there would have been this kind of solidarity when the Screen Actors Guild members were forced to get a jab. To be fair to SAG President Fran Drescher, she said she wanted to strike over that, but couldn't, and SAG didn't. So after years of hearing that certain films weren't made for us that used to be, and when we don't see them or don't like them, the audience gets vilified, and after years of seeing stories we used to all love get destroyed beyond all recognition, again including but not limited to Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel Comics, DC Comics, I could go on, and expressing we really didn't like what you did to Luke Skywalker or Spock or Galadriel, we were called racist, sexist, and any other pejorative you could think of. Oh, I am not done. And after years of being told classic stories like The Lord of the Rings weren't accessible, despite being one of the best-selling books of all time, translated into multiple languages and adapted into the greatest trilogy of all time, earning billions at the box office worldwide, a classic that will never be equaled. And again, it's not limited to Lord of the Rings. We have two recent examples, Little Mermaid and Snow White. Remember that little thing I said about timing being everything? Well, this news dropped 2 days after SAG decided to go on strike. Exclusive, Snow White and the Seven Politically Correct Companions. First pictures of new live-action remake of Disney classic shows stand-in princess walking with diverse band of merry men and women after a row over using dwarf actors. And yes, those pictures look awful, but that's not the worst thing. Yes, they are stand-ins, but that is an accurate representation of what this film is going to be, and they're going to release it in theaters. And I see this picture, and for one, I can smell it from here, and it's precisely the reason I don't go to Burning Man. At first, Disney denied these were real, and then they had to come out and admit that they were. But that's not the worst part. In response to this, Snow White actress Renee Zegler then unintentionally destroys the entire representation argument. Extremely appreciative of the love I feel from those defending me online, but please don't tag me in the nonsensical discourse about my casting. I really, truly do not want to see it. So I leave you with these photos. I hope every child knows that they can be a princess no matter what. I hope you meant girl, and if you did, then I absolutely agree with you. Hollywood, you're gonna have to understand why the audience is feeling a bit apathetic. And you're gonna have to accept that we're in the decline of the movie star, and that started coincidentally with the advent of social media.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
You know what I was saying to my friend? I go, you know what that is? These motherfuckers haven't gotten any attention for months because they haven't been filmed.
And this has all led to a giant cluster of the likes Hollywood has never seen.
What are we doing? Moving around furniture on the Titanic?
These conditions will potentially produce an absolute collapse of an entire industry.
There's way too many moving parts right now, too many greedy and it's collapsing the entire industry. What the hell was that? That was my shelf.
Oh my God, it's collapsing the entire industry. Oh no!
This is Hollywood, everybody.
The higher power works in mysterious ways and has perfect comedic timing. Now, I'm not saying that the writers and actors, the good ones anyway, don't have some very legitimate concerns, including AI.
Obviously, AI, which I think is just overhyped to death in terms of the worries that actors and writers are going to be replaced rather than assisted, which is what I think will happen.
And while AI right now is essentially a search algorithm and not a very accurate one, I think it's a good idea to get out ahead of it, although I think it's something a writer or an actor could deal with in an individual negotiation. Hey, I have an example of AI. I asked ChatGPT to write a Nerdrotic video about the Hollywood strike, and this is what they came up with. Cut to dramatic background music as images of picket signs and protesting Hollywood workers flash on the screen. Gary, voiceover. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is this Hollywood strike all about? Well, my fellow geeks, it's a battle for the ages, the creative minds behind the camera, the unsung heroes who make our favorite shows and movies come to life, have risen up against the studio titans, demanding fair treatment and respect for their invaluable contributions. Cut to Gary back in his chair. Gary, these are the writers, the directors, the animators, the costume designers, the set builders, and countless others who work tirelessly behind the scenes, often without proper recognition. They're the ones who bring magic to our screen, but unfortunately, they're being subjugated to a system that has taken advantage of their passion and dedication for far too long. So no, basically, I don't think there's anything to worry about right now, at least until the robots come to kill us all, and by then it'll be too late anyway. All sarcasm aside, there is one issue I am completely on the side of the writers and the actors: studio transparency.
We just want transparency. I mean, you know, tell us what you're making, and if you're making less, okay, we'll share in your pain just like we share in your profit. But they're not offering any of that. we're gonna shut you out, not tell you anything about how much money we're making, and then we'll say, hey, we're poor. It's we're not making enough money. It's ridiculous.
Now, I might be in agreement with the WGA and the SAG for different reasons, but sure, I want them to get paid, and I really want to see those numbers.
I can promise you that when a streamer like Netflix says we're not going to release our numbers, it's because they're screwing someone over somewhere. That's why they do it.
I agree with Sean Gunn. I absolutely think they're screwing somebody over, but you still might want to file this under don't ask questions you don't want to know the answers to. I think one of the reasons they don't share the numbers is because they're incredibly low. Otherwise, they would. And yes, they are screwing somebody over, the stockholder. You know who else is getting screwed over? All the non-union workers in Hollywood attached to that industry and the theaters. I'll give credit where credit is due. Tom Cruise, the last Hollywood movie star who was in a pretty damn good movie, Mission Impossible 7, go see it. Tom did try to lobby the SAG to allow actors to still promote their films even during the strike. He reportedly spoke of the precarious state of movie theaters, which are struggling to rebound after COVID, and that promoting films also benefits actors. Well, as the people who make up the pretend and the people who act out the pretend fight the people who pay for the pretend during the summer of the flopbuster and peak television, all squabbling for money that quite frankly is drying up in Hollywood, what are we plebs to do? Well, I agree with actor Clifton Duncan here on Twitter. The worst thing about the Hollywood shutdown is that the only entertainment we have is podcasts, YouTube, video games, books, music, family, and 100 years of superior television and film.
Boom.
I would also like to add that Hollywood has put in their fair share of work turning the audience into the adversary. And that is the other unintended consequence of striking during a culture war, turning your paying customer into the competition.
There is now a completely different set of rules that goes into how we decide to be entertained and how we decide to pay for what that entertainment is. Because if you and I and everybody else in this room wanted to be entertained for free for the rest of the month, we could be, between YouTube or an app or anything else that is part of the social media. That's free. That means it does not cost us anything. Now, our desire, I think, as an audience is that we want to go off and be challenged by what we see, and so we go off and we'll try to do that.
But not to worry, I'm sure Hollywood has plenty of content to get them through what is their second shutdown in almost 4 years. To be fair, Barbie and Oppenheimer had great openings. Congratulations, Hollywood. Enjoy what may be the last big box office weekend for a very, very long time. Eventually, the WGA and the SAG will work it out, but by the time that they do, I think there's going to be a lot fewer of them. You call it a strike, I call it a purge. The woke party is over and we're way past the hangover stage. It's time for Hollywood to go to rehab. Entertainment as a whole is going through a paradigm shift, one that corporate Hollywood is too bloated to keep up with. Maybe Hollywood is just a tired 20th century old model that lingered through the 20th century, but then eventually couldn't adapt. They're already losing a generation. It's not like you see a ton of kids at movie theaters anymore. I leave you with the wise words of the late Douglas Adams, given in his last interview over 20 years ago, where he predicted what I believe is the paradigm shift that we're experiencing right now.
At the end of the 20th century, we came up with this exciting new buzzword, which is interactive. The interesting thing about the word interactive is that the 20th century is the only time we've actually needed such a word, because it's the only time we've been surrounded by non-interactive forms of communication and entertainment, like CDs, videos, cinema, radio, television, all that kind of stuff that however you react to it, it doesn't react to your reaction. Now you go back to the 19th century and any time in human history before then, and it was predominantly interactive. You'd perform to audiences and so on and so forth, and everybody was in touch with everybody else. So that's what we kind of lost in the 20th century, and effectively we can't do what we used to do simply because there are now so damn many of us. But what our technologies are beginning to do is put us back in touch with each other much more intimately in ways that we used to be, and that's what we've got to kind of readjust to.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I appreciate you listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.
Among the stars,
Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold